Before we begin, just a quick disclaimer. I'm pretty friendly with one of the designers of this game, Ethan Yen, so this essay will be biased in the designer's favor. I think it's pretty uncontroversial to say that people love dogs. In the United States alone, 62 million households own at least one canine. People who own dogs perceive themselves as being healthier than their non-dog owning neighbors, and 85% of American dog owners consider the animals part of their family. Hell, the scientific name for domesticated dogs is Canis familiaris. There's a reason they're man's best friend. Fetch My Blade, a solo journaling game by Kelly Tran and Ethan Yen, plays on humanity's love of dogs and mashes it up with another well-worn trope, that of an old sword master preparing for a last duel. Players embody not the warrior, but the warrior's faithful hound, as they bid the dog fetch my blade in preparation for a fateful last battle. It's a solid concept for a solo game, but I think its initial imagery is what struck me most about the piece. I don't know about you, but when you give a dog a sword, I am 100% bought into whatever that pooch needs to accomplish. I'm not exactly sure why I find this idea so exciting. Maybe it's the anatomic mismatch. A thumbless creature must instead use its mouth to hold the blade, which taps into some sort of primal association for me, like a pirate holding a knife in their teeth. Maybe it's the striking silhouette, a blade jutting out at an angle from a lupine creature lower to the ground. But I think, more than how cool it looks, the idea of a dog running through a city, frantic to retrieve its owner's sword, is appealing because of its emotional implications. The thematic core at the heart of Fetch My Blade, and I'll argue the trope of sword-wielding dogs generally, is loyalty. The way we determine the approximate date of dog domestication is not via written record, but archaeology. According to Galabert et al. 2011, a human burial site called Bonn Oberkassel in Germany contains evidence of canid domestication dating back some 14,000 years BC. Our relationship with dogs is older than our relationship with the written word. It's also a highly emotional one. A tomb in Ain Halaha dating to 12,000 BC contained human remains which were found clutching the skeleton of a puppy. People love their dogs so much, they've been buried with them for multiple millennia. It's hard to track down an exact number, but suffice it to say, between 30 and 15,000 years of domestication have created an unflinching loyalty in all but the wildest of canines. We have functionally reprogrammed dogs so that their lives revolve around us. In Fetch My Blade, this dependent relationship is central to character creation. Your life hardly exists outside the context of your master, and the most important parts of your personality are the truths you believe about them. These truths are one-sentence statements that inform who your master is and what they do. However, throughout the course of play, as you run back through important areas in your shared life, your hound will begin to question those truths. Using a dice mechanic from John Harper's Lasers and Feelings, players will roll over or under their friendly or fierce stat to overcome challenges. When players fail or only narrowly succeed in an encounter, they are prompted to question the truths they previously held about their master. Perhaps you once believed your master liked to wake up earlier, but as your story progresses, you learn that they can't sleep, since nightmares of their past life still haunt them. But what I like best about this truth mechanic is that no matter what happens on your journey, no matter how much of your truths are proven to be false, your loyalty to your master will never falter. In the first Dark Souls game, players will eventually stumble into a graveyard, where they'll find a massive greatsword jutting from the soil. As they draw closer, the shadow of an enormous wolf falls over them. The hound takes up the blade, and players engage in one of the most infamous fights in FromSoft history. Great Grey Wolf Sif is legendary not for his difficulty, but for the emotional impact the fight has on players. Dark Souls is a game about killing big bosses. There's no way to escape putting this dog down. But even sadder than that, before you take Sif on, you can actually free him from his abyssal prison and use him as a summon against a different boss. If you do this, when the time comes to face Sif in combat, he'll recognize you as a friend, bellowing a mournful howl before drawing his master's sword. In typical Dark Souls fashion, reading into item descriptions tells you how the poor wolf ended up in a magic cage in the first place. His master, Knight Artorias the Abysswalker, shattered his arm during his quest, and in a final desperate act to save his friend, cast his great shield's barrier around Sif before succumbing to the darkness. This is a fictional account of the love between a dog and their owner, but it's mirrored in countless legends and stories throughout the ages. Odysseus' dying hound Argos is the only one who recognizes him as he returns home to Ithaca in disguise. In the Quran, the dog Kitmir becomes the only animal eligible for heaven after guarding 7 people fleeing Rome's persecution for 309 years. And in 1935, Hachiko, the faithful dog of Shibuya, passed away after waiting for his owner's return at the local train station for nearly 10 years beyond the man's death. As heart-wrenching as the story of Sif and Artorias might be, it's unexceptional in the long line of legends and real-life incidents of dogs being unflinchingly loyal. In an interview Tran and Yen did with Otso Spirit Bear, Yen describes the intentionality behind the naming of the game. A fetch quest in a video game is typically thought of as something trivial, an obstacle for its own sake, a justification for a minor reward. Similarly, fetch as a command is associated only with dogs. To tell a person to fetch something would be insulting. But in the context of the game, it's deeply serious. The master is entrusting his friend with the most important task of their life. This fetch quest is taken not for the sake of the POV character, but the master themselves. Furthermore, the method in which the quest is completed ultimately will determine how well the master fights in the duel. If you manage to return the sword in a timely fashion, your master gains an additional die to resolve their battle. And when the master draws the legendary weapon, they take on the stats your dog has used throughout the game to resolve their fight. This is an intentional choice as well, as Yen wanted to include the belief that pet owners often take on the characteristics of their companions in the text. Which is a really smart choice. Mechanically speaking, Fetch My Blade is as interested in the reciprocal relationship between dogs and humans as it is in the loyalty of dogs alone. I think this game fundamentally works because its core relationship is not one-sided. Loyalty is a historic and treasured quality in our canine companions, but because Fetch My Blade takes place from the dog's point of view, that trust cannot go unrewarded. We love that dogs love us, but, especially in the context of a solo journaling game, we want to give them love in return. It's why there was a whole Twitter account about whether you could pet a dog in a video game. We need to be able to share that affection. For me, the image of a dog with a sword in its mouth works so well because it represents the codependent bond we've cultivated over the millennia. Perhaps we've changed what it means to be a dog throughout the years, but what Fetch My Blade understands is that through pure, guileless devotion, they've changed us as well. Thank you to everybody for watching. I really appreciate everyone who takes the time to see what I'm saying about tabletop games. If you want to help me keep the channel going, you can send me a tip at my Ko-Fi in the video description. My background picture is Liquefied Image by Adrian on Unsplash, and my profile picture is by Eater Outsider on Tumblr. If you want to find more of my work, I'm at AA Voigt on Blue Sky, Monster Factory Fanfic on Tumblr, but my main site is aavoigt.com, where I talk about games and writing. I also do another podcast that's Mortified the Friendship Quest, where me and my friend Layla do critical media analysis. Hopefully by the time this video comes out, we'll have just talked about the video game Iron Lung, which I think will be interesting. Thanks again, as always, for watching. Until then, see ya.